If Henry Winkler was in a music video, just give me just one guess what music video Henry Winkler was in.
Okay. Everybody wants to rule the world.
All right, we'll do it like 20 sack pyramid style. I'll give you one clue. Pants.
No, he wasn't an MC Hammer too legit, was he?
He was an MC
No,
Hammer too legit.
Are you serious?
Credited as Henry Winkler.
And
I guess
what?
as himself.
Oh my God. Now I have to watch the video.
The Hammer? He wouldn't do that. I have a dance lesson this afternoon.
Welcome to the Barry Podcast, presented by the Joe Blow Football Show. I'm one of your hosts, Jamie G, eater of beignets, downloader of Detonate, and I'm here with my co-host, Magnum, and we're going to break down the season 3 finale of Barry. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Mills, starting now.
Well, you're lucky. I'm here until I get that call from Jim Moss. And if he calls, you know the deal. If he asks you to come over, it's not really optional. He's not really asking. And I am Magnum Mills. Thank you for checking out the Barry Podcast. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform or on social media at Barry Podcast. You can send your feedback to barrypodcast@gmail.com or from the Joe Blow Football Show, who you can find at joeblowfootballshow.com and on social media at Joe Blow Show.
And please remember, we absolutely will be spoiling literally everything that could be possibly spoiled about Barry. This is your first and final warning.
Pirate style. I like that. Pirate style. And this is episode 8 of season 3, a real hard one. Episode 8 of season 3, starting now. We're starting now. Originally aired Sunday, June 12th, 2022. Directed by Bill Hader. This is the 10th episode of Barry that he's directed. Written by Bill Hader and Alec Berg. This is their 9th co-written by credit on Barry. And the short plot synopsis here is: NoHo Hank hatches an escape. Sally lets out more aggression. Barry encounters more traps sprung by Fuchs.
Now that we know what we're working with here, it's time to break down season 3 finale of Barry, starting now.
We open the episode with Barry back on that beach, but this time he also sees Gene and Sally in the crowd. He wakes up at the hospital, takes out his IVs, and apparently just hightails it the fuck out of there. Was he in the hospital 30 seconds?
Yeah, and you kind of called it. Like, it's either going to be one of those things where he just like, zombie rips everything out and just like stumbles out of there. And that's basically what they did. I mean, for a dude who got poisoned to the point where he foamed at the mouth and blacked out, to just suddenly come to wheezing, not being able to do anything, to just magically getting better. I don't know, man. Maybe it was like the 24-hour bug. It was getting dark when, at least it was daytime when he left. So I guess he spent the night there.
All right. So in Showtime, how much time, like we saw him kind of pass out at the end of the last episode. How much time do you think he was actually in the hospital for? Over 8 hours. So
if he got checked in, let's say at 10 p.m. and he leaves, I'm gonna say over, but under 12. It's
like 10 hours, let's call it.
Yeah, we'll call it 10.
He either had the antidote or pumped his stomach. Can't really quibble about it too much. Just, we got to point it out here that it was sort of ridiculous that he gets wheeled in there after being poisoned and just rips out his IVs and goes about his business. I mean, did they not check his wallet? Don't they have his name? Is he going to get billed for this? I mean, I don't know. Does Barry have insurance anymore? We've never answered any of these questions, that's for sure.
Inquiring minds need to know, does Barry have insurance, and is he going to get billed for this? I mean, that seemed, they had to break out the stretcher.
Like Cobra or something? I mean, is he, who knows how, you'd think back in the day, this is probably something Fuchs set up, right? Like Barry didn't strike me as the type who would bother with that. Like maybe just Fuchs took it out of his check or something like that.
Yeah, Fuchs was a manager. I mean, Fuchs probably had his 401k, his health insurance, full benefits to work for.
Yeah, it was a Fuchs 401k. All that money was going to Mr. Fuchs, I believe. And let's talk about maybe the darker, less fun part of the scene here. And that's when he briefly in that crowd sees Gene and Sally. Did that give you any sense of foreboding? Like, oh shit, like this was a beach of dead people, and now we just saw in theory, the two people that Barry loves most in the world on this beach. Like, damn, right? Like double damn, maybe even.
It kind of implied like both of them could die here. Now, we come to find out that both of them basically exit his life one way or the other here, but not that they're dead. So I thought that was kind of a cool, bit of writing there to kind of work that in. And then after you take in this whole episode, you kind of come back to it and you're like, oh wow, that was cool.
I'll just kind of quote Hader here. He appeared on the Prestige TV podcast from The Ringer, said some stuff about the episode. We basically covered that there. He said that he thought Gene and Sally were appearing on the beach as a representation of the two things that Barry cared about the most. And, it was like a fever dream that he's afraid something would happen to one or both of these people. Pretty much same thing. Apparently at one point it was a little bit different and Sally would be laying across a rock and the camera would go on her and her eyes would be glowing. But apparently another movie or series did something similar. So they scrapped that. And the actual shot of Barry looking back was from the previous episode. So not a long scene, but a pretty important one.
That it was. From there, we see Barry returns home and he finds Sally waiting for him. She wants him to do the things he had proposed doing to Diane to Natalie on her behalf. Barry watches a video of Sally verbally assaulting Natalie in the elevator while Sally begins to describe her plan. Barry stops her, saying that she doesn't want to do this, but Sally doesn't understand how this is any different than what he was going to do with Diane. But Barry knows where he's going now, and he doesn't want her to go there too. As he begins to further explain, the surviving member of the bike gang shows up and punches Barry out. He then chokes Sally, who manages to slow him down by sticking a knife through his neck. Pretty wild stuff. As he's surveying his injury, Sally beats him to death with a baseball bat. Barry tries to calm her and tells her that he did this. He did this.
Wow, right? I mean, the cold open was that scene of Barry walking in, he grips a knife out of the kitchen, gets someone's there, and it's Sally. And she's ready for this, right? She's got notes. She has plans. She has thought about this. Like, she is ready to break bad, basically, for lack of a more apt term. I mean, she is very specific, and we only get to step 2, I think. It was going to involve something with Natalie's car. But damn, right? And then maybe for her good luck, maybe bad, Barry's just coming off of having that dream of seeing her on the beach. So he's really freaked out by this. What did you think when that dude just appears behind Barry, like the fucking ghost, like the scream ball?
A little convenient here. I mean, it was cool because you just caught a glimpse of him. You're like, whoa, I think somebody's standing behind Barry. And they did a good job throughout, here, kind of creating that suspense of like, okay, is someone major going to die? And it's the season finale. Shit's kind of hitting ahead here. A lot of characters are in jeopardy. So I thought that was kind of cool, but way convenient for me, man. I mean, to not have anything with that biker gang, all this over $1,700, it's a little too convenient for me.
At this point, I actually get, because all the other members of that gang are dead. So now it's a vengeance thing. But if I remember correctly, this is actually the guy who shot Fuchs. And this is the guy who walked into that room before, when the dudes, remember, they were in their booth doing the thing and he went in there and found the beignets receipt or what have you. So this guy's kind of comfortable with there. He knows where the location is. Again, the timeline is what you have to think about. He was the dude in that blue van, mind you, shot the shit out of multiple cars, trapped in traffic. And I guess he gets out of it. But then what did he do? Did he wait around for a while? Or did he go straight from there to Barry's? This is just where the timeline isn't going to match up if you think about it at all.
When an AK-47 is firing at innocent vehicles in rush hour traffic on the interstate, in LA, how on earth is, in this day and age, people not dialing 911 and cops not showing up? And where's he going to go? Run away? I mean, him getting out of that is a stretch, and not being in jail. And then to just, I don't know, man, it just seemed like it was just way too convenient to basically set up a scene with him and Albert later on.
It is what it is. The plot isn't going to match up here. We know that they had to rewrite a bunch of the season. You just kind of have to, I guess, accept that people know where people are. Maybe, again, everyone's being tracked through the Detonate app. That's my personal in-brain explanation. And let's have a little fun before we get into the real darkness of the scene. I did, shout out Nick and Jermaine. They went down to Tijuana to try their act out. Jamie G, how do you think their act's going to play in Tijuana?
I'm hoping that it's a big hit, man, but I'm worried about
they make it back alive.
I'm hoping they make it back alive. Tijuana is a wild place, so be careful, please. And I will say, I thought this was great where she gets the knife. You see him kind of drag the knife and then drop it, and then Barry, and then Sally gets it and stabs it into his neck, and it's kind of like, oh shit, it's all the way in there, but it's not until after a minute you realize it's poking through the back of his eye, and he's like he thinks she poked something in his eye. I thought that was pretty cool. It was shot really well when she's kind of like struggling and it looks like he might actually kill her, and she looks over and she sees Barry just completely knocked out. That must have been one hell of a punch. I mean, shit, to knock him out like that. But
also just ripped his IVs out, came from the hospital. I don't know that Barry's in tip-top, fighting form this episode, so to speak.
That's fair.
Just again, nice to see kind of Sally get the one up there, and you have to feel, no one should ever have to suffer abuse or whatever, but at least she had some experience in this. It probably saved her life enough to kind of keep aware and look for that knife. But that was just fun because you kind of hear it and you don't see it till the dude turns around, and then he's so casual about it. Like, he just ignores Sally. Then he just forgets about her, goes in, he's trying to look at the thing, and he's looking on his cell phone. And
yeah, it's almost like he got like a concussion, or like he was like completely out of it and just felt this pain in his eye.
How did your emotions swing? Because within a span of about 20 seconds, we went from Sally gonna die to Sally just murdered somebody.
The actress was just incredible here. I thought she was gonna die, and then it's like, oh shit, dude, she just turned. And my immediate thought was, she's basically the female version of Barry. She just doesn't know it.
Yeah, but it's that rage, and what we saw in the scene with Natalie in the elevator, that's that rage. That's the same rage that Barry had when he wanted her previously in her writer's room. And this is kind of the next logical step, especially because Sally at this point has to feel like she's fucked, right? What does she have to lose at this point? And I think that's why she's willing to. I mean, think about it. She's drawn a map to Natalie's house. She knows how to make that map because Natalie let her stay there when she broke up with her boyfriend. I'm not sure that Natalie is bad as she's making her. We've talked about this. If you haven't listened, go back, listen to the last episode where we kind of discussed, did Natalie really steal Sally's show, or did she just kind of, come up in the world? And Sally's unfortunately had a rough run of it. Damn, dude. And you will say that Barry, at one point, he tells her to go home. She apparently took that literally. One more thing that Hader mentioned here is he thought kind of like the big shot or the big moment of the episode for him, at least as the director, was that close up when Barry's kind of holding Sally's face and everything. I get it. It was a crazy moment because she's completely in shock, covered in blood. And Barry wants this is usually someone's kind of he's usually on the other side of this, right? He's the one kind of in the fugue state or in shock or whatever. Did you think at that moment there was any chance that they might actually reconcile?
I still think there's a chance they reconcile, and probably not in this season. I saw a little bit of his Marine Corps shit coming out a little bit here, and it was interesting to see him want to take all of that from her. And in his way, that's his way of actually showing how much he loves her. He wants to take all of that away from her and keep her pure and innocent from all of that bad.
Again, that was a very powerful scene. There's a bunch of them in this episode. It just, can't say enough good things about Sarah Goldberg. Been absolutely slaying it. She's got to be right up there with Rhea Seehorn in the Emmy runnings for me for lead female. I mean, just absolutely phenomenal performances, both this episode, last episode, all season, really. That was a bit of a bummer. Let's have a little more fun. I know how we can have fun. Let's find our boys. We go to a meeting where Gene and Annie are meeting with our boys, Tom and Bob. Bob pitches them on a production of Our Town. It will be performed by Gene and the students from his class, and it will be broadcast live into movie theaters across the country. Gene says they'll do it if they perform Annie's play, Chrome Fuck Number 9, instead. While they debate this, Gene gets a phone call from Jim Moss, who summons Gene to his house. It should only take him 17 minutes to get there.
So much. Let's start with the fun stuff here, Magnum Mills, and then we'll work our way back into something else with the scene.
Real quick, really inquiring minds want to know, which do you prefer, Chrome Fuck or Drone Fuck? Because Chrome Fuck was pretty good, but I heard Drone Fuck, and I'm like, I think there's more. I can go more ways with Drone Fuck.
I think there's more value with Drone Fuck number 9. That is to me a better name. It's more appropriate. Period appropriate. Yeah,
Google might own
Google definitely does. It's period appropriate. Who knows when Annie wrote this? She might have wrote this, back in the 22 years ago or whatever it's been since she's been, in the realm of it. So
real random. I'm pretty sure I remember Gene talking about a play he did back in the 70s, all laced up on LSD. Could this be that play?
I would love it if it was. And I hope to God, dude, I hope they give us some flashbacks of it.
Yeah, let's not get too much into Bob and Tom here. Got a feeling that's going to come up in either our favorite quote or favorite scene. So maybe we'll save that a little bit. And Jamie G, when's the last time you saw Fort Fairlane?
It's probably been about within a year, within a calendar year. I'd say probably 8 to 12 months, somewhere in there.
So you should know, which one are you, Neil or Bob, or is that just what you do?
Oh,
yeah. Sorry, we got to have a little bit of fun here. It's a pretty dark episode, and it only really gets darker from here on out.
Thank you for that.
Oh, and Gene, let's talk about Gene's wardrobe real quick. We are tonight, if you're watching on the YouTube, we are rocking some of our Gene Cousineau whatnot. Just if you're only listening, Jamie G has a wonderful brown corduroy jacket, a bit of a patterned green shirt, little square action going on there, and a pink tie, I believe, mostly. I
Fuchsia.
have a fuchsia tie, excuse me. I have a argyle red, green, yellow type of tie going on with a little bit of a purple checkered shirt here. A little bit warm right now, so I opted to forego the jacket. Plus, honestly, I have like regular people suit jackets. I don't own a jean jacket. I do not own a corduroy jacket. So Jamie G, you definitely have one up on me there.
Let us know if you're watching who wore it better.
Who won this one? We'll put up a Twitter poll or something. So
yes, we're gonna find out who did the Gene better here. Can't wait for that. If you had to think about what the plot would be of Chromefuck number 9, basic thoughts on this, man? Just kind of a general overview here on the plot.
Secretly, everyone who's been using the Google Chrome browser has been like programmed with some weird shit. So when like Google plays something on YouTube at some point, it's gonna like activate people for like some mass hypnosis or some shit, and they'll get fucking mind fucked by Chrome. That's the 9th version of it or something. Is
the 10th version coming? I mean, the 10th edition. It's got to be, right?
I think Microsoft owns the patents for that. They're still trying to make Internet Explorer happen, which is actually a lie. I said that because they just finally discontinued Internet Explorer. Pour one out for Internet Explorer, and also Netscape. Shout out Netscape.
And you know what else? Shout out Blockbuster, just because.
And one last thing before we go, we heard about Jim Moss's fantastic interrogation skills. Is he also a hypnotist? I mean, he just tells Gene, like, Gene's like, I don't want to go there. He's like, you will come here. It's like some Jedi mind trick shit, right? And he does it throughout the episode. It just seems like Jim Moss doesn't really ask questions. He's just politely telling you what to do.
People may get mad at me for this, bash me on it, whatever, but I don't like this. I wish, the character Jim Moss they set him up so perfectly where he could be intimidating, scary, like a real legitimate foe for Barry here. They could have did a lot with him. I hate the fact that it's just like, oh, he's calling, I feel compelled to answer. And then I tell him no, but not only does that mean yes, but it actually means right now too. Like, it bothers me. This is just kind of like a, no, dude, I'm busy. Don't even answer the call.
Gene especially could easily be like, look, I'm legitimately in a meeting, like $1 million meeting right now. This is going to have to wait.
Yeah.
Barry, I can kind of get where maybe he feels like he's got some leverage on Barry. I guess on the other hand, maybe they're trying to show that Gene kind of knows deep down. That's why he doesn't want to go, that Jim knows that he was lying or whatever. But still, the fact that he would just go there, I mean, maybe is that the thing? Jim's threatening without threatening. Is that part of his, the skill or the, interrogation is probably one of those things, right? It's more of an art form than a science. Like after a certain point, it all comes down to how the individual does the things that you're taught or whatever. Yeah, it is a little bit far-fetched that he seems like he's Jedi mind tricking people. But I kind of just, again, I think you just got to roll with it a little bit. The show is a little bit, a heightened reality kind of. He's got enough gravitas, I'm willing to buy it. But yeah, it shouldn't work as well as it does.
From there, we're back at the police station, and we see Detective Mae Dunn is interrogating Fuchs. She shows him the pin left with Janice's body and tells him that they have his tooth from Garan's murder scene. They know that he's Monroe Fuchs and that he works for the Chechen mob. Fuchs asks for his lawyer and is sent back to jail. When he's addressed as Mr. Fuchs, he tells the guard that he's the Raven. Such a great quote here. I'm the Raven. And prison guard's like, the what?
It's funny because the first time, it's one of those things when you go back and watch it the second time, is sometimes maybe it's not quite the way you remembered it. And I remembered her like legitimately laughing at him. And she doesn't laugh. She's just kind of like, what?
Here you go, Mr. Fuchs.
I'm the Raven.
The what?
I could picture her starting to laugh after that. But I did say at one point, maybe Fuchs was going to have to embrace this Raven persona. I don't know. Do you think that's maybe he sees that as a ticket out of jail somehow now? 'Cause we don't even know what he's actually charged with or anything.
Yeah, I think he's keeping it in his back pocket for sure, man. I mean, this is a guy who's now had a day of sitting in jail to think about kind of what the hell am I doing here and what's my play? What do they know? And I think he's calculating, why not play into it?
And I came close. I did call that maybe a far out prediction was at the end of this season. The final scene would be Fuchs is in jail. And we go to the cell next to him and it's Sally. We don't get to see Barry, but there is a decent chance in the first episode of season 4, we're going to get to see Fuchs and Barry in jail together.
I'm okay with that. I think that could actually be really cool if that's their forced interaction is in jail, like in the yard or something. I mean, that would actually be kind of cool.
And one more for you, we're not going to really do full on predictions, so we do a separate pod for those. But I want to say, what are the odds that Mae Dunn is the next woman to fall madly in love with Fuchs, and that's how he gets out of jail? She winds up like breaking him and Barry out or something.
It may be as high as 50%. I mean, it's not totally out of the reason here, dude. I mean, I could see him playing her a little bit and she falls for him. I mean, he's bound to get a third. This guy just gets women out of his league. I don't know what to say.
Holy smokes.
I mean, it is what it is, dude. I mean, you have Tiger Woods, you have Tony the Tiger, you have Chester Cheetah, you have Joe Camel, or he's probably more of a camel than a cat, but you know what I mean. Let's talk about the biggest cat around, the Big Cat, because after getting nowhere with Fuchs, Mae asked Big Cat if anybody knows what's up with Albert, and nobody does. She wonders just what the hell Fuchs said to him. Let's talk about Big Cat, dude. I mean, he's got the presence right here. Let's start out with a little fun. Like, we hear him, wish that maybe he was along with Albert. If they were partnered together and went out on a stakeout under over 6 hours before Albert murders Big Cat.
Oh, man. I'm not taking that bet because that's just too.
I don't think they'd make it one night. Albert would he'd either quit the force or kill him, I feel.
It would be hilarious though, dude, if they did like a spin-off like Naked Gun spoof with Big Cat. I mean, that is like, I'm there for it. I guess one thing here is the fact that like nobody's like kind of checking on Albert. I guess he's kind of, just because he's FBI, he can kind of do whatever he wants here and go off the grid. But I mean, it's fine. There's really not much more to this scene for me.
No, just a quote from Big Cat that I'm pretty sure we're going to get to later on. So maybe we'll keep that in our back pocket.
Yes, sir, we will. We see Gene arrive at Jim's house 20 minutes after their phone call. They go into the garage, which is empty, except for 2 folding chairs facing each other in a very menacing way. Jim uses his interrogation skills on Gene, asking him if he loved his daughter and if he loves Barry Berkman. Gene is overcome with fear and emotion, saying that he loved Janice, but he does not love Barry. Gene, sobbing, crying, bursts into tears, and Jim asks him why he's protecting Barry Berkman. This was not necessarily fun. It was pretty much verbally abusive, and that's all I can say about it. It was dark, man. Some dark shit.
Very much so. And it's kind of one thing I noticed too, because it's a real kind of old school, in that you just kind of sit down and it's basically just one wide shot, and you don't really cut out of it at all. It just starts to slowly zoom in on Gene. You basically have him taking that whole third of the screen, and then Jim slides his chair and gets in his face, and he's just doing the interrogator thing, right? He's just repeating the same 3 or 4 things over and over and over and over. Even though Gene wasn't answering, by the end you felt like he was probably going to give, right? Like no one. I'm surprised he made it as far as he did, kind of.
Yeah, no, I think we were slowly watching him break, and the whole thing, again, it goes back to like, why am I subjecting myself to this? Get up and walk out. Why am I going to let another human being, another man, get face to face with me and scream in my face? He's not an authority. I don't have to be there. This is just part of my issue with this season finale. a lot of these things I'm just kind of like left with like, it just doesn't make, some like superhero guy where you're just like forced to stay there by his will? Like,
The only thing I can tell is I remember you saying that, oh, maybe Gene knows some shit about Jim from their past interactions and everything that we weren't privy to. I think you said that last episode. I'm not even trying to do like a gotcha moment or something. Just that's what I had to go with. Kind of, that Gene is legitimate. I mean, let's be honest. Jim would kick Gene's ass too if it came to that.
yeah, but he could just get up and walk out.
He shouldn't have been there in the first place. I think once he was
Yeah.
there, he was stuck. Like once he walked in that door, he'd committed.
Yeah, but one dude, if you're leading me out to a setup like that in the garage,
Right, so
I'm
once he
turning around
walked
and
into
walking
the
away.
garage, he committed. When he saw those two chairs there and didn't turn around,
Yeah.
he wasn't going to get up in the middle after that. I don't think. I guess.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just a lot of kind of, I really got to look the other way on things here, but
That's fair enough. I mean, I do think the main takeaways overall here are probably that he does say that he loves Janice, says it multiple ways, multiple times, does finally say that he doesn't love Barry. And we kind of cut away from the scene finally when Jim's hammering on him on why he's protecting Barry. Because honestly, Gene has to ask himself that, right? Why is he protecting Barry? If he's just as scared of Jim as Barry, I don't, he had to pick one kind of, right? It was kind of an either or, I think, at that point. He was either going to be on Team Jim or Team Barry, and I don't think that voting independent was an option.
Gene doesn't have it in him to be, he can't be bullied like that and abused like that. He's going to break. And I knew it was going to happen as soon as he sat down. And, as soon as they showed the scene, I was like, oh, he's going to spill the beans.
I think it was designed that way, that you knew as soon as you saw the chairs, you knew exactly where. I mean, honestly, as soon as you saw the beads of sweat on his forehead last episode, some version of this scene was always probably going to happen. Maybe it could have been in a public place in a more casual conversation or something, but this was going to happen at some point. And one thing Hader mentioned again on the podcast, we talked about a little bit that he wanted to keep limited camera movement here. They did that very well. They did 7 takes of this. They used 6-1 in the final cut. Winkler really cried during the scene. And, Hader said it's kind of weird because it was a crazy scene, but it was actually very sweet. And writer Duffy Boudreau referred to the scene as Gene facing God. And I think you get that a little bit, especially when he's kind of on that third side and Jim moves right into the frame, right on him, almost like they were going to, you could almost like make it like they were going to make out or something like that. They were just that close. And this is literally, they did a lot of rewrites for the season and stuff like that. This was one scene they said never changed throughout the entire process. So for better or worse, this was always how they intended it to be.
To be devil's advocate on the scene a little bit, it's like, if Gene knew what Jim was capable of, why on earth would he even feel comfortable going over there? No, Jim, we should meet in a public place. No, Jim, we can talk on the phone. Like, I just, to me, it just seemed like they just needed to get him together. And it was like, oh, well, we're just going to basically make him be like intimidating on the phone and people just bow down and do whatever he says. Like, I didn't like it.
In principle, you are correct. I think they did try to do a little bit of work in that scene with Fuchs last episode to at least set it up a little bit that this dude had a background in this kind of thing. They did some work for it. I'm not saying that it makes a ton of sense or whatever, but they at least tried to lay a little bit of track for it. Probably retroactively after rewrites or something, but they at least made an effort to show that it just didn't come out of nowhere. So I'll give them credit for that. But like you said, it is very convenient. It is absolutely a little bit of a plot contrivance. And well, let's talk about plot contrivances. And good news, we're going to see NoHo Hank. Bad news, he might also have superpowers now. Down in Bolivia, Yandar has managed to free himself. He and Akmal are going to overpower the guard and then release NoHo Hank. We stay at Hank's point of view as he listens to their attempted escape, which is quickly thwarted by the guards. However, it does result in a panther being unleashed, and it apparently kills most of the men while damaging the wall of Hank's cell. Overcome with terror, Hank manages to break his handcuffs. An armed guard comes running into the room, but Hank manages to overpower him. He shoots the guard and then unloads a storm of bullets into the wall, killing the panther.
I love anything with NoHo Hank. Give it to me all the time. This is just so unbelievable. First of all, I know panthers are powerful, but not powerful to shatter cement walls.
Well, that wasn't cement. We do see that's actually one thing. It was probably more of a stucco that was painted or something. So that makes a little sense now how they could hear each other last episode, because you can see when you see the wood and everything. So it is not, it would just be cement and rebar if it was cement. It makes sense that they could talk to each other through the walls now. That was a good point. Him breaking the handcuffs. And it's funny because he made a big deal asking, how did you get out of the handcuffs? And it's never answered. If he would have at least done the thing right when you yank it and you maybe break the pole or something, you pull the thing out of the wall. I would have bought that easier than him snapping the chain of the handcuffs, right? That's
There's no way.
You would break your hands and your wrists, and maybe you do the dislocate your thumb thing or something, but this does not. I get that in the moment you get, the terror strength and whatnot, but when he was pulling the thing, I'm like, all right, let this, just don't do, and then he just snapped the handcuffs. Oh, man.
Yeah, a little bit convenient. Again, that's kind of a theme throughout this episode, but I did like when they heard, like, the sound work was fantastic here, as you kind of hear them unleash it, the screams, the whole thing, like that was pretty cool, and it sounded terrifying and scary for sure. They did a good job kind of building that suspense. Give them a little credit here.
Oh yeah, and I'll do one more bad and one more good. Like when the guy comes in with the gun, dude, he just runs at Hank and holds the gun to his chest. It's not, if you had a gun in that situation, the last thing you would do is, it's a little contrived, and I get it. It's so Hank can have this big moment, because we've seen Hank do a lot of stuff, but he's generally not this guy, right? He's not he gets Barry to do this kind of thing. He doesn't get his hands dirty. So he's definitely taking a step here. It's probably a money thing why we didn't get to see the Panther or any of the guys or the escape attempt, but it worked because Anthony fucking Kerrigan, dude, like you could do like a 12-panel meme with all of the faces this dude makes during this. He tells the entire story on his face, and it's fucking amazing. And that's the kind of thing. This episode, the plotting isn't great. It's a lot of just, you have to overlook at it. It's like some fast travel Game of Thrones type of shit. But if the performances in the way it's shot, the way it looks, the way it sounds, all that stuff's fantastic. And he legitimately sells a scene that some other shows might have spent, 2 days and $1 million shooting or something. And Anthony Kerrigan just sells it by himself with nothing. So it's fantastic.
Shout out to AC. He's the bull. From there, Mills, as electricity flickers, Hank makes his way out of the cell and to a room at the end of the hall. In that room, we see Elena is using an attractive man named Gustavo and electroshock therapy in an effort to rid Cristobal of his attraction to men. Ooh, Elena begs Cristobal to come back to her, but he is unresponsive. Hank has had enough of this, and he shoots Elena in the head, followed by Gustavo. He embraces Cristobal, who recognizes it. No, I didn't see that coming at all. But again, like, there is a lot of shit in this show that kind of that places they go. And what's sad is that is something that's used around the world, which is horrendous when you think about it. And so it's sad but yeah, I mean, that was wild. They added some humor to it with Gustavo and stuff. I mean, but still.
And shout out that dude, he's doing like the Magic Mike thing 1 minute, and then she's like, piano, and he goes and like starts playing a nice little ballad on the piano. I think, Gustavo, you could have done better, man. You could have found a better line of work than this, I feel. One nice touch that there was, when you see Hank going up the hallway, you get a family portrait of like Elena and Cristobal and their 2 kids, and they all look fucking miserable. Like they couldn't even be bothered to smile for the portrait. They all just look like someone's literally pointing a gun at them to take that portrait, just to kind of give you an idea of when you see Elena, right? Because she actually seems like she loves Cristobal, I think. Like she genuinely seems to be doing this to get him back, not as revenge or something. He killed her father, well, maybe unintentionally, but was tangentially involved at least. And she seems to be willing to overlook all that if he'll just come home, more or less. It's kind of sad.
It is, and he didn't give her any reaction to anything. And at first, you kind of thought maybe he's just been tortured enough to where, if your brain gets shocked enough, it's not going to work. But then there was such a touching moment when Hank comes up and just kind of hugs him, and you don't actually see Hank pull the trigger. You're looking at Elena, and all of a sudden she just gets shot in the head and drops. And that was a really cool scene, to the way they shot that with her dying. And then all of a sudden, Hank comes over and he drops the gun and he gives Cristobal a hug. Really, really touching. And, I'm happy for him, man. We've been on team, Krista Hank for a minute. And that was cool to see him do that. And Cristobal responds.
I think it's Chris Stank, right? It's Chris Stank.
Chris Stank. Yeah, it should be Chris Stank. That's better. He responds, though. Cristobal. Hankaball. He responds to Cristobal responds to Hank. And I thought that was cool, too, because he just watches his wife die, and then boom, he killed his wife, and yet he's responding to Hank. So pretty cool.
And also, though, is that they let that scene linger in the hug. In first, you stay on Cristobal's side, and he's got his eyes open. I'm pretty sure he's looking at Elena's body, and then he seems to kind of sigh and close his eyes and kind of, really get into Hank's embrace. On the other side, Hank starts out with his eyes closed and embracing it, and then slowly he kind of gets wide-eyed as it pans down to his bloody hands and everything. Just not doing a lot of predictions here again, but I think next year we're going to see a new NoHo Hank. I think he might have a little bit of purpose this time. You know what I mean? Maybe Plants is going to come back with multiple locations.
I would love to see Plants 1, Plants 2. They do them in Roman numerals or just two explanation points for the second one, 3 explanation points for the third one.
You turn the Aston Plants into a $sign. You got that going for you too. In good news, bad news, we lose, a couple guys, but we do still have Batir is in play. No Batir this episode, but still alive. So like that. Big fan of Batir.
I'm hoping Akmel or one of those guys may have made it out of there alive.
Did not make it there. I'm
still
pretty
holding
sure
out hope.
I think they're all dead, unfortunately. Again, Hader talked a little bit about this scene. He just basically said the idea to make the Vengeance Panther like an actual fucking panther and just, a horror movie type of feel. Like the more you hear, the less you see, the better it is. And Anthony Kerrigan just kind of said like it's pure survival. It was intentional that there's like no gags, no funny bits here. One's supposed to be action, one's supposed to be funny. It was just survival and messy and clumsy and terrifying. And I think they succeeded in that. Barry has returned to the location where we opened the season to bury the body of the biker Sally killed. As he finishes up, Albert arrives and confronts him. He wants to know how much Barry got for killing this guy and how much he got for Chris. Barry drops to his knees and sobs, unable to answer Albert's questions. Albert points his gun at Barry, who screams and continues to sob. He manages to choke out a couple of words to beg for his life, and Albert puts the gun away. Albert explains that he has a daughter who wouldn't be here if Barry hadn't saved his life. He knows that Barry isn't evil, but he has to stop all of this, starting now. And one thing I will point out here is the closed caption actually does say ragged breath. So in theory, Barry is at least feeling the after effects of the poison a little bit still.
You know what? If that's the worst thing he's got, then I guess congrats. Seems like it would be a smidge more than that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, let's not even really get into Barry's full medical file. Just right away, there's pretty 2 easy points here. We have no idea how the fuck Albert found Barry. We're just gonna have to accept that he did, and no idea how Barry has a car. Because if you remember the last time we knew, Barry stole a bike, and that's how he got to Sharon's. The bike was running out of gas, and then I guess he walked from the car dealership to Sharon's, right? So
yeah, because when he left Sharon's, he didn't have like a car to go to. Like he didn't have like his own.
No, Bullet picked him up, and then he went to the hospital. It is what it is. Let's just not spend too much time on it. We'll acknowledge that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure rewrites happened. Shit happened. It doesn't line up, but Albert gets here, and when he does, it's a crazy ass scene. Especially because what does Barry say? 3 words? And they're like, please don't, no.
What, Jamal? You don't want that. Them girls only know 3 words. Stop, no, and don't.
My brother, you got those words backwards. They always tell me, no, don't stop. Excuse me. Player.
Shout out Redman. How high? Great role.
The scene for me was, acted incredibly. Hader went to a level I didn't really know he had this gear. When he's kind of just like screaming and tearing at the dirt and going like feral, it was amazing. I have no, again, shot beautifully, looks great, acted really well. You could argue, forget the mechanics of how Albert got there. Do you believe that Barry saving his life back in the day and that giving him the gift of the daughter is enough for Albert to really forgive him?
Maybe. Here's my problem with this, man. It was such a big lead up with the character Albert and what's he going to do and the cocking of the gun. And he finally found out, he means business. There's no ways. And then it's just kind of like this random scene out there where no one else is out there. He could do anything he wants and walk away from it. But it's like, I don't like, at the very least, Albert strikes me as the type of dude that's going to put Barry in jail at the very least and try to get him some help. Like, it's just.
Do you think it was just the fact that Barry was so pitiful? Do you think that's what ultimately kind of saved him, and where Albert kind of was just like, hey, all right, I don't think this dude's evil, so he's just a broken person who made some bad choices. The hard part for me is he harped so hard on Chris and then basically just dropped it. I would have understood if from Jump Street he showed up there and tried to more like be more helpful to Barry instead of doing it a direct confrontation. You know what I mean? Where he showed up like, I'm just here to help you, doesn't pull his gun on him or something like that. Then I might have bought it a little more.
And yes, the Chris thing, but dude, let's not forget why Albert's there to begin with, to investigate the murder of an FBI agent, Janice Moss. The fact that he now knows Barry murdered Moss, Detective Moss, and that's not enough to kind of be like, I need to like catch this guy. What's he gonna do? Blame the Raven? I don't know, man. I'm disappointed with the whole Albert scene here. It just seemed again like all this build up, the whole thing with Chris, and then it's just kind of like, but it's got to stop starting now, and just walks away. And like, swing and a miss for me, bro. Swing and a miss.
Yeah, I'll just give you Hater's quote. And so to get this is the angle they were coming at it from. And he said on the Prestige TV podcast, it was always a feeling that Albert was the only one who could really forgive Barry. He could give him back his humanity. That Albert is going to be turned like all these other characters we've seen throughout the season, that he was going to resort to violence because he loves somebody. And then he gets there and sees Barry cowering, and you realize that Barry isn't Jason Bourne or some mastermind. He's basically just a scared boy, and Albert's looking at a soldier. He's looking at someone with trauma. The idea being he went there to do something, and you know, and I think they're trying to reflect, he brings up his daughter, and I think that's supposed to be a thing that reflects again on last episode. You know, when you hear a father, just the only thing he ever wants to do is see his son again, in him talking about the daughter that way. I get what they're going for, but like you said, I'm not sure that they did enough work to really get there and make it all land in a very coherent and, again, impactful way as far as the plot, very impactful from the acting.
The
But from a
directing
plot standpoint, right?
the
All
way
the
it was
other stuff
filmed
is
was
good.
awesome.
It's the plotting. It's just the plotting doesn't make is motivation. You get why Albert's forgiveness would be so big to Barry, but you don't understand why Albert is ready. You know, maybe that's me. Maybe I'm a fucking Scrooge with a heart of coal. And if I had an 8-year-old daughter, because my life was saved by this man, it would be different. But it seems like you said, he's not giving him one pass here. He's giving him many passes. This isn't even like a Dexter type situation where he's killing just avowed criminals mostly. Like he's at least got a Marine and a cop under his.
Yeah, I did like that they brought it back to the opening of this season out there, the same place where Barry was eating the donut and trying to cut the guy's eyelids off. I thought that was cool to kind of bring it back to that same setting.
Anyway, that was a scene about forgiveness too. Remember, because there's no forgiving Jeff. And really, you had one guy was going to kill this dude because he was fucking his wife, and then he elects to forgive the guy for fucking his wife, and the other guy elects to forgive him for trying to kill him. And they're both like, "Oh, we're forgiven. It's all good, Barry." And Barry shoots them because there's no forgiving Jeff.
There's no forgiving Jeff.
I think that's what they were going for. Is this was the only way that Barry could feel forgiven. But then they kind of, again, even if that's the point, then they're going to undercut it in a little bit by having, you know, Barry take that gun and go to try to take care of Jim. So we'll get there sooner than you think. So move us on, Jamie G.
After Albert lets him go, Barry gets into the car and calls Sally. He's going to grab some things from his house and pick her up. They can go anywhere. She just has to pick a place. As they're about to hang up, Barry tells Sally that he loves her. Sally's reply is a bit ambiguous, but it clearly doesn't matter. We see that she's about to board a plane for Joplin by herself. She's literally going home.
Yeah, and as far as the response thing, because if you were watching on HBO Max or whatever with closed captioning on, when Barry says, "I love you," for Sally, it says, "Oh, you do?" But the way Hader talked about it in an interview and what my ears and lip reading said, I think she said, "Love you too."
Oh, you do.
From what Hader said, it was meant to be kind of condescending. Like, oh, now you're finally fucking saying it. So I guess it doesn't matter. My guess is they probably filmed a couple of different takes of that, slightly different variations. In one version of that script wound up with what being the closed caption, because I'm pretty sure she does say "love you too," but it is, again, like not meant to be the way she used to say it. Well, when she would just say "I love you," and then Barry would say like "my controller's broken" or whatever. Hey, dude, Sally gets on a plane for Joplin, dude.
Bro, did you see that coming? Like, I in a way, I'm worried for Sally, but in another way, I'm really happy for Sally. Like, she kind of, it was all burning down around her. She kind of needed to get away from it and get away from Barry, I think, a little bit here, right? And so in a way I'm happy for her, but in another way, we've watched Sally kind of make rash decisions that don't end up working out well for her. I'm a little worried about her here too. How's she going to handle having just killed a man and then heading out, into her hometown where she faced all this abuse and, all the things that went wrong with her that she ran away from all those years ago to head to LA.
I'm assuming she'll be on the show next year, right? I mean, because she's off on her own now, right? How is anyone going to, unless Barry goes to Joplin, how is her plot going to interact with anybody else? But if you think about it, she really only interacted with Barry. Like, she doesn't have a scene with Gene all year, I don't think. We kept waiting for it. I'm pretty sure they never even talk on the phone.
Barry and Natalie, that was pretty much it. And Diana, I mean, that was...
Yeah, she had work stuff in Barry. So now without that, where will the circles overlap? I like when shows mix stuff up. I'd love to get her in NoHo Hank's orbit somehow. I have no idea how that would happen. I'm assuming she's going to still be on the show. Fantastic actress. I don't know why they'd write her off, but it also feel a little bit false, right? If she just, like, we opened season 4 and she's back already or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess she still has, maybe she's just going to clear her head. She still probably has a lease on her apartment and stuff like that. I don't know if you just, pick up and go without your belongings. So maybe I'd buy it. But I will say for a second, because when I was watching the episode, the pup had to go outside. So I had to transition to my phone for a hot minute. And this scene was when I was taking him for the pee on the phone. For a hot second, I thought she was going into Banshee's offices. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, was that just her goodbye call to Barry? And she's going to, like, go fucking postal at Banshee? The show's, we're at that point, right? For better or worse, I would buy it. Like, I'd be like, I could see, like, that being the bloody end of Sally. Like, oh fuck,
yeah, she just goes out.
She's taking Natalie out and the algorithm. Just imagine her shot by cops and she's just with a fire axe, just hacking the fucking mainframe trying to kill the algorithm. That would have been that's probably, you gotta say that for the series finale, I guess.
Yeah, dude, that's a big moment there. That is wild. I could see it happen. As you're saying it, I'm literally watching it happen. And she would pull it off so great.
Like, she's just screaming, "You entitled cunt" at the algorithm, at the server. She just tries to destroy the algorithm. You entitled fucking cunt.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
I would be there for it. Again, just very surprised, but probably the best decision Sally's made in a minute. Even if her home is toxic, she needs to do something different right now because she's in a bad fucking place. Literally anything is probably better. Any kind of change, I would imagine.
And you got to appreciate the irony where, Barry finally tells her he loves her. And then, gosh, she's gone. So, his worst fear of losing her came to fruition here. He doesn't even know it yet. And then obviously losing Mr. Cousineau, we're going to realize that here pretty soon.
She's on a fucking plane to Joplin, see where she ends up beginning of season 4. After that, Barry's still in the car. And after he gets off the phone with Sally, he gets a phone call from Jim Moss. He informs Barry that he's talked to Gene and he'd like Barry to come to his house. Barry says that he's going to have to call him back. He hangs up and calls Gene. Gene tells him that Jim knows everything and he wants to take them down. Gene apologizes. Jim is threatening to ruin him and he doesn't know what else to do. Barry asks where he is. Camera pans down and we see a gun sitting next to Gene.
Finally, someone said no to Jim here. I at least appreciate that. I mean, but even Barry started to break a little bit. But I mean, can it wait till tomorrow?
He might be a Jedi, dude. Maybe this is how. I guess maybe HBO, Disney, they're starting to move towards this crossover, the DC Marvel crossover. Is this how we get there with a little Star Wars crossover to begin with? I don't know. I mean, I would like to see NoHo Hank with a lightsaber. So
I would love to see NoHo Hank go through an interrogation with Jim. I think he could win it, dude. I think he could win it. You haven't believing the Raven did it.
By just being so fucking kind of aloof and clueless that he would just frustrate Jim so much that Jim would just, I can't break this fucking guy. He's giving me nothing.
Exactly.
Hank would just be telling him 5 different versions of Wikipedia's definition of the Raven.
I liked how this was shot. For a minute, I thought Gene might kind of shoot himself. I didn't necessarily think he was going to go. Gene didn't strike me as the type of guy, although he did want to shoot Barry at the first, beginning of the season here. So I was personally leaning towards like, oh no, is he going to do himself in here? I
was definitely a bit worried about that, but if again, first time around, I didn't notice. Second time around looking at it, I'm like, oh, I think that is actually that gun. I guess it's not technically a prop gun, but it's like a gun that they used as a prop that maybe could be fired. But still, if you really look at it, that's probably the first clue. that maybe Gene isn't on necessarily Barry's side here. I mean, shout out Gene. He's definitely a better actor than we gave him credit for, if nothing else. And he's going to keep it going in a minute here. I will say on the, the phone call, we had the nice exchange between Jim and Barry where Jim's trying to do his Jedi mind trick thing.
It's Jim Moss. I just had a very interesting conversation with Gene Cousineau about my daughter's death. I'd like to speak with you about it. You available?
No, I'm not.
I'm gonna need you to come to my home.
Can I call you tomorrow?
I need you to come now.
Look, I gotta call you back, all right? I gotta call you back.
I think that's pretty much it here. Again, I think we have a little bit different about how like Jim's method works for us, but I will say I like how he's direct. He didn't like call Barry up, be like, hey man, I'd like to hang out and have a couple beers or something. He's like, no, I talked to Gene about the death of my daughter, Janice Moss.
It is good. Like, it's skilled with how he plants these seeds of like fear.
You just don't see that approach, especially in television a lot for kind of the interrogator type of thing. It's usually a lot of subterfuge and bullshit. So I like the way that he, it's part of his method, probably, I'm assuming, or whatever. But that's the kind of thing, because it's a little bit different. I think that's why I'm willing to let it slide a little bit, because it's a little bit of a different take on it than I've seen before.
From there, we see Barry speed to intercept Gene, who is outside of Jim's house. After arriving, Barry confronts Gene and takes the gun away from him. Gene is distraught, and Barry tells him to get the hell out of there. He's gonna go talk to Jim. Gene begs Barry not to go in there, but Barry ignores his advice and heads into the house.
I have to give credit to both Gene and Henry Winkler here, because he's doing a twofer, right? He's putting on this act, but at the same time, basically everything he tells Barry is the truth.
Yeah.
Barry shouldn't go in there. He asked him to leave. It's like, a scene within a scene within a scene, kind of. We're at that third meta level now where Winkler's playing Gene, who's playing this version of Gene. And this all really works for me here. I think he's also appealing to Barry, wants to have that deep relationship with him. And Barry really thinks he's doing the right thing, right? He's coming
Trying to save
from
Gene
Albert, right? Telling him like this needs to, starting now, no more of this shit. And I think Barry was down with it. He doesn't even have the gun. And we'll get into maybe how that plays into the long-term thing in season 4 here, how this all actually happens. But what did you think when it was happening? My thought was Gene was wearing a wire and trying to get him to confess there. So I had an idea that something was going on, but I didn't think that what was going to happen was going to happen. Did you have any other thoughts kind of just in the scene before Barry goes in the house?
I figured that somehow, some way, Gene got turned and was doing what Jim asked him to do. But at the same time, I could see it. And this, again, shout out Gene and Winkler. We'll just call him Gene Winkler for lack of a better term here. Jinkler. Shout out to the Jinkler, because, dude, honestly, I believe the sincerity that he didn't want Barry to go through with it, and he didn't want him to do it. But also, by doing that, he knew Barry was going to even more, because Barry thought he was saving him. So he played into the kind of the love he knows Barry has for him, and deep down inside, I think he has for Barry, despite everything. This was a really good scene for me, acting wise, off the charts on both these guys. Even Barry, it was so chaotic. He's like, he's fresh off just this whole thing with Albert. Now he's realizing he's got to do this. I think he was worried that Gene might actually go in and do something. So I kind of bought it a little bit. I just worried that Gene there was some sort of setup for Barry inside. I didn't necessarily know it was going to be cops, but looking back on how Jim handled Fuchs, the writing was, we should have known.
And that is good writing, that the actual big twist here feels like we should have known. And this is me in my head, like thinking of how skilled Jim Moss is. I think he would have pitched to Gene something like, look, all I'm asking is you give it your best shot. You do your absolute best, whether it's to wear a wire or get him to come in this house or whatever. You give it your best shot, honor my daughter, we're done here. And that's how he had to sell it, right? He probably did threaten him a little bit because he could fuck with his reputation, I'm sure. You know how today your status is very tenuous. And even just being associated with murders like this, especially the murder of a police officer, would be enough to kill all his, his rising star, so to speak. So I just, in my head, that's what I imagine Jim was said. He's like, dude, just do your best. I'll be watching, listening, what have you. You give it your honest chance and he doesn't go for it. Okay. You did your best. And so I think he gives him his best here. And like you said, it's so good that it actually increases the opportunity of the outcome. And if you think Jim's that good, then that's like level 5. So it all tracks for me. That brings us to the final scene of season 3. Barry enters Jim's house. Jim has football on and he's fixing himself a drink. Barry approaches him with a gun he got from Gene in his hand. As Barry walks up to Jim and raises the gun, we hear, "Freeze!" It was all a setup, and the cops have the place surrounded. Barry does not immediately drop his gun, and the tension builds. Barry then sees Gene standing there, and he realizes that Gene was in on it. The police disarm Barry and take him away as Gene looks on. As the police leave, Gene shares a look with Jim and then departs. Jim stands quietly alone outside of his house, still grieving for his lost daughter.
His facial expressions, the acting here was really good.
He's been learning for Stephen Root, I think. His face acting has stepped it up a fucking notch here.
Yeah.
He did all season long, man. He's just, you can, I mean, you look at his face and you can tell how he's feeling. It sounds fucking stupid, but that's way harder than you fucking think it is.
Yeah. I'll say I was surprised, but not totally. I didn't expect Barry to die, but I didn't really expect him to be able to kill Jim either. So it just felt like Jim was going to carry on till the following. It would just be way too convenient at the last 2 minutes of the season finale. He somehow kills Jim. I didn't see that coming.
He still might. I mean, because there's we're not going to do again a ton of predictions or whatnot here, but I will say that in theory, if that was a prop gun that was given to him by Gene under false pretenses, I'm not saying he gets off scot-free, but there's a chance he gets off on this particular thing. Yes, could they charge him with the Janice Moss thing and everything? Yeah, but again, this is just haters saying basically like this episode was dark, but it's going to be still more of a comedy and everything next season. Who knows? Maybe that's just a jailhouse comedy. But I certainly think there's a world where Barry manages to skip on this because it's not, especially if it's a prop gun that's not loaded. You know, I mean, maybe Barry does a year in jail and we fast forward.
I don't think that the season 4 is going to take place in jail. If anything, maybe one episode.
Well, we have him and Fuchs in jail now. With other characters that can interact with the police. So it would really surprise you if 2-3 episodes he's in there. I think it would be cool if all of a sudden like Hank gets picked up too, and then they're all in there, so they have to do a big like Great Escape jailbreak style thing together. I think that'd be fucking awesome.
That would be fun.
Like everyone has to kind of unite for this one thing to just so they all get out. You know, you see it's a very common trope, but I think that'd be a fun one.
Did you think that it would be someone else that would come in? I mean, that Jim would want death revenge, or did you know, what were you thinking here with Barry as he was creeping around the corner and you see Jim kind of watching the game and making himself a drink?
Honestly, when I was watching it, I was just kind of transfixed. I didn't have anything. The show has done a good enough job. I in that moment, I couldn't really think of anything. I was just watching because I also thought there was a chance they were going to come face to face and just cut. And that's that's your cliffhanger. If I had to pick something that deep down, like subconsciously, that's what I was thinking. That we were going to get something, maybe he'd say something or whatever, but it would be kind of just you're doing a pretty quick cut here at some point, leave you on a big cliffhanger. It's not that they don't leave you on a big cliffhanger, but it's not like a mid-scene cliffhanger or something where you're going to have to pick up right from that moment in season 4 or something like that. How about you?
Yeah, I was kind of the same way. I was just waiting for it to happen, something. And at first I'm like, why isn't he just going ahead and shooting him? He's kind of like watching him here. I thought it was done pretty well, actually. And I'm okay with this as we head into, it's kind of like, oh shit, now what? You know, I'm okay with this. And you're right. It gives options to Barry here. You know, they could go a couple of different ways with this heading into season 4, which means cool. Now I'm going to guess. I'm going to be excited, curious to see what happens. So it did its job.
Again, like we already talked about Hater, but just because at first it's, he pulls the gun on Jim and they yell freeze, and then he's kind of like his jaw starts to drop, and then you see Jim turn around and kind of give him the look, and then he doesn't quite know what to do, Barry, and he's looking around, and then you see the kind of cops move aside and he sees Gene, and it's just like, oh. And then he walks past. I'm pretty sure in reality, Gene would not have been allowed to come into the active crime scene like that right there. But you get the moment where Barry walks right past him, and Gene, the camera stays on Gene as Barry moves out of the frame. And I know it's done for artistic purposes, but it really worked well. And then the final shot of Jim just kind of standing there, just like, damn, I did all this and still have an empty house. Reflecting on, as much as Albert loved his daughter, Jim still doesn't get his back.
Nicely put there, Magnum Mills. And somehow that does it for Starting Now, the season 3 finale. It's time to hand out some hardware here. Let's start by each choosing our favorite quote and or dialogue exchange from the episode. Ah, man, I mean, there wasn't a lot of dialogue here, Magnum Mills. I mean, there really wasn't a ton here.
If you told me that Barry utters less than 20 different words throughout this episode, I would believe it. He might order a number of words more than 20, but most of them are like, no, please, don't, and this. We don't get our usual plethora of normally picking a quote is, yeah, like you said, just picking a grain of sand out of the beach.
With that said, dude, I've got to go with the exchange from Tom and Bob.
You see drone fuck number 9?
It's chrome. Fuck number 9.
Chrome?
Like on a trailer hitch,
Chrome fuck.
Yeah, 2 top tier, very clear quotes that stand out. And I think it's basically because, like you said, there's not a lot in this episode. So you kind of have to grasp onto whatever you can get. And of course, not only is it what you want, it's what you need. And that's the big cat.
Is Albert still not answering his phone?
Yep. Haven't seen him since he stormed out of here and cocked his gun in front of us. He's probably out seeing the sights. Man, I wish he'd take me with him.
That's the fucking big cat, dude. It's like it's like Funk Flex had Big Truck series. We're gonna have Barry Podcast Big Cat series, dude. It's gonna be a thing. Big Cat series. We're so fucking focused. All that shit. And that brings us to our favorite scene or moment of the episode. I was kind of going back and forth between 2. I'm going to go with that. Basically the scene where the biker dude walks in on Sally and Barry, somehow knocks Barry out, but then that's just unexpected. Yes. Does it make a ton of sense? No. Is everything about it just like when it was happening? I couldn't believe what was happening. And it also was one of the few scenes I think that managed to still be very dramatic and profound, but did have a little bit of comedy in it. So I appreciated that part of it. Jamie G, what was your favorite scene or moment from Starting Now?
Good call on that, Magnum Mills. I'm going to go with that end scene there. To me, it was kind of the big surprise. I didn't see it coming, but in retrospect, I should have. I think that's well done on from a writing standpoint when you can accomplish that. And I really liked, to your point, that exchange where, Barry kind of looks and the camera swivels and you see Gene and they make the eye contact. And at that moment, he realizes that he's, his fears are coming true in terms of, losing the people that he loves and he doesn't want to lose. And having Gene betray him like that, that's going to be a tough one for Barry to swallow, man.
Yeah, and I can't really call it a full scene because it's like 2 lines of dialogue, but I will say the little, like right before the credits, the end of the cold open there, where Barry walks in on Sally and she asks him to do the shit to Natalie. That might be my favorite cold open of the season because that was kind of like mind blowing. Like, oh fuck, it didn't go anywhere where I expected it to after that scene. But that was after that, I was like, I'm going to have to reevaluate all of my expectations for this episode.
And that brings us to our Greek Freak of Assassins, which is our MVP of the episode. My turn to go first here. Magnum Mills, I am giving it to our guy, NoHo Hank. Why? Because when he started this episode out, he's been on a losing streak here for a couple episodes, man. He was not in a good place. He's held captive. They're torturing the people. He doesn't know what's going on. He breaks free miraculously, literally breaks the chains, kills Elena, and gets the love of his life, Cristobal, back. He basically saved the day, was a superhero, and got his love back. That's better than Stella getting her groove back. That's NoHo Hank getting his groove back. My MVP all day.
He's got his groove. Now he's just got to find his Dodgers hat. I mean, get the beignets back, the important things in life. And honestly, I really wanted to go with Jim Moss here, but that shot at the end of the episode, he's still alone, man. He's still sad. So I have to go with Gene, because if you go back to the first episode of this season, how leveled up is Gene? He got exactly what he wanted. He got revenge on Barry, but not only that, he has now far more money. His career is back in a big way. Yes, maybe just deep down, he have maybe a little bit of remorse about Barry, but considering where he started the season at with just wanting to get revenge against Barry, going to the cops and telling them about Barry and begging them to do something, he got everything he wanted, I think. So hard for me not to go with Gene Cousineau here. And I think that's a nice transition because it's time for us to do the thing. We're not Roddy T's, but we do have to put a grade on this thing. So,
Because I'm the Fonz, huh? Hey!
we are going to grade this episode of Barry on a scale of 1 to 10 Fonzies. Hey, in honor of Gene Cousineau himself, Henry Winkler. My turn to go first here. I've been back and forth on this one. I don't want to knock it because there wasn't a lot of comedy. As far as a dramatic episode of television, it was incredible. However, I do have to knock it for some parts of the plot, which just don't make sense. I understand they had to do rewrites, reshoots, that kind of thing. Hopefully it's going to make for a better experience going to season 4. So maybe retroactively, I'll bump it up a little bit. I am going to give the finale, starting now, 93 Fonzies, 9.3 Fonzies. Wanted to be a little bit higher, but again, there's a couple of things it's tough to get there. But I will say, for the most part, everything about this episode absolutely sings, except for, again, some of the plotting. Jamie G, I know you'll be lower than that. How much lower?
Look, I shared my grievances here with it, and for a lot of the same reasons that you had as well. I'd say I was also a little bit let down with what ended up with Albert, where they went with that. I wanted more out of this. I'm giving this an 87. 87 Fonzie for me. It was good. It was shot well. The acting was fantastic. Lot to like here. Maybe I'm being too critical. I reserve the right once we get into season 4 to come back here, but 87 Fonzies for me. And
I mean, if they can do a good approximation of Prison Break with Fuchs and Barry, that if maybe it's like, damn, it was worth it just to get Barry in jail with Fuchs there. Who knows? This is that kind of show, right? Maybe NoHo Hank is going to take over he's going to breed panthers or something to create an actual vengeance army of panthers. Who knows? Anything could happen. It's fucking Barry, man.
And I am there for it. I have no doubt season 4 will be entertaining and awesome. Love the show. Thank you for doing it, Hader and company. And you know what, guys? I think that does it for Starting Now. This might be the final episode of season 3, but don't you worry. This will not be the final episode of the Barry podcast. Right, Mills?
Yes, sir, Mr. Moss, sir. We'll be back soon to do a breakdown of season 3, which, despite the finale being a bit dark here, should be a lot of fun. We'll follow that up with a season 4 predictions preview joint, which I can guarantee you will not be terribly accurate, but should be a bunch of fun. Probably also relative to the number of beverages we have, but again, should be a good time.
Yes, it will. And after that, we will still be putting out episodes periodically. We might go back and cover some episodes from previous seasons. We might talk about more Mitch and his beignets. Hell, we might even get our workplace comedy about Detonate off the ground. That is a winner. There's something there.
Dude, stop giving away all our fucking ideas, man. Yeah. All right. Point being, forget you just heard that. That's don't worry about that. No need to worry about that. Pay no attention to the show behind the curtain. And if you've enjoyed listening or watching, there's going to be more to come. So please stick around. Appreciate having you.
Thank you again for checking out the Barry podcast presented by the handsome mofos of the Joe Blow Football Show. We hope that you enjoyed the show and that it added something to your Barry experience. Very much. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. It's very easy and it helps us out a lot. Considering this was the season finale, we'd love to hear what you thought. Please reach out to us. Also, don't forget to tell us who did Gene better. We had a master Gene off here. We got to figure out who did Gene better. Vote on this sucker. And we'd love to hear what you thought. Mills, please tell these people where they can find all of our content and exactly how they can get in touch with us.
I feel like we should do the $25 Gene challenge where we each have to create a Gene outfit for like $25 at a thrift store or something. Feel like that would be a good time. And if you're interested in random shit like that and also talking about Barry, you're in the right place. This has been the Barry Podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching for Barry Podcast. We're on social media at Barry Podcast, and you can send your feedback to barrypodcast@gmail.com. We're from the Joe Blow Football Show, who you can find at joeblowfootballshow.com and on social media at Joe Blow Show. We are currently covering the hit series The Boys from Amazon on Compound B. Find us on your favorite podcast app by searching for Compound B, and find us on social media at Compound B Pod. We just wrapped up our coverage of Ozark from Netflix on the Ozark Podcast. Same thing, Ozark Podcast on your favorite podcast joint and social media. Speaking of Netflix, they just came down with Peaky Blinders Season 6. Already covered it on PvP, a Peaky Blinders podcast. Find us by searching for PvP, Peaky Blinders on your favorite podcast app and on social media at Peaky Podcast. We are also continuing to cover the final season of Better Call Saul on Saul Over Soon, our podcast about that fantastic fucking show. You can find us by searching for Saul Over Soon on your favorite podcast app and it's Saul Over Soon on social media. And we will always keep covering It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia on The Nightpod Cometh. Find us on your favorite podcast platform and social media at Nightpod Cometh. Thank you again for checking out the Barry podcast. We super duper really turn off our Wi-Fi, connect our Bluetooth, all that. Appreciate it to the depths of our cell phones. I'm Magnum Mills. He's Jamie G. Hope you enjoyed this, but if not, there's no need to worry. I'm pretty sure that people can change. Oh, well, except Jim Moss and Mitch. They're perfect the way they are.
And always remember to turn off Wi-Fi before you press the detonate button. We'll see you next time on the Barry Podcast.
This has been the Barry Podcast, presented by the Joe Blow Football Show. This show is for entertainment purposes only. We are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with Barry, HBO, Alec Berg Inc., Han Arpley, or Warner Brothers Television. The views here are those of the hosts only, and they do not reflect those of any other person, organization, or entity. Thanks again for tuning in, and we're looking forward to seeing you on the next episode.